Hello there and welcome to the bedroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Used Elfers for January 30th, the day of Take Charge. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of Take Charge. What we have is an image of rather simple. Boom! It's like a battle flag and a zigzag coming off as the shadow. Does that stand as an adequate representation of the day of Take Charge? I would say it kind of does. Also kind of looks like a Z for whatever particular reason. I don't know. Maybe that'll make some kind of connotations for the meaning of as much as we get on with the read there, but probably not, all things being considered. That having been said, I just kind of like you to see what I have in front of me, kind of add a little context there, something of value perhaps. That having been said, it's not altogether all too important, the visual representational image here. What is important, however, is it is January 30th, and hence it's got to be somebody's birthday. So with that being the case, I just want to extend a heartfelt happy birthday. And if nothing else, take that from the video and everything that comes after there. Happy birthday. But if it finds you late, the video here, as is often the case, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that instance. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, or more ideally to celebrate the birthday, or if you're just here for your daily numbers, well, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, I mentioned daily numbers. Before I dive in with the birthday redirect, something I like to take a few moments to acknowledge or do here, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled a 5 and a 4, 4 and 9. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I've heard it told, the universe will often put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or chase after our aspirations there. Make them reality, if you like. But a lot of times we're very narrow or singular of focus. We often have the blinders on to kind of what's going on around us or the significance with the things that we encounter. So we kind of just let them go by. But that being said, hey, we're trying to recognize the things the universe is throwing in our path to help us manifest our goals, right? Like I said. So this is a little bit of an exercise to help us take off those blinders and recognize those things that the universe might be putting in our path. And how do we do that? Well, we have to drill down on a sign that we can't help but notice or recognize, if you like. That's right, your daily numbers. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but that being said, maybe raid the old Yahtzee set you got in the closet there. Grab your dice out if this is something you want to entertain and get out in the world and try. So what you do, you ascribe directional values to number sets, drill down on your own daily number if that's something you want to do, and also time limits with which to go by those directional intentions there, like the directional values rather. But also pick out a spot in town that, maybe near or dear to your heart, or one you haven't explored before. That having been said, when you get out there, choose your spot, get all your numbers in line, get those blinders off. Like I said, you want to kind of start soaking up everything like a sponge, because you never know. There might be things that present into your life that you, like you said, otherwise wouldn't take note of. Let's take the visual representational image, for example. Maybe you start seeing flags everywhere, and not just like a random American flag hanging out. It could be like a sticker that somebody slaps up on a transistor box or something like that. Or maybe you pass by a store that just has all kinds of flags on sale, or maybe someone's carrying one. Now, it doesn't have to be a flag, but that's the kind of thing I'm saying you need to take note of. Also, your numbers may present just everywhere on everything, and like I said, this kind of stuff that you're maybe not taking note of in your everyday goings on. So get those blinders off, and you never might know what things might arise for you. That having been said, you get off to this after this first leg of your trip here, chasing down your time value, your time limit. Maybe at the end of that, and you just haven't seen anything. Well, just step back, compose yourself, look around. You might just so happen to find yourself, I often like to use this example, on, there you go, 45th Avenue perhaps. Hey, there you go. There's a sign you're on the right path. At least that's the way I would take it. That said, roll yourself another time value, another direction to go in, and head off. All right, maybe at the end of this time value you find yourself, I don't know, maybe in front of an alleyway. Nothing else going on here. Hey, maybe roll yourself an even or an odd number for yes or no, whether to go down. Maybe the dice say no, but you know what? Just take off again with another dice roll. Maybe you just so happen to find yourself in front of a building with, I don't know, what's this? A 45 in the address. Hey, you know what? Maybe take a chance, go in, see what you see. Maybe you find yourself, I don't know, in an aquarium. Oh, you go in an aquarium, huh? Not like you're shopping for fish, but, go in, see what you see. Maybe you just so happen to run across an old friend from school or college. Oh, this is pretty random, right? He's like, I just got here. Or maybe they're just getting ready to leave. And if you hadn't taken a moment to stop at the alleyway, well, hey, maybe you would have missed them or something. Or, I don't think I lined that up right, but you get the idea. Maybe you would have missed them if the universe hadn't put you in that time value there. And so now you caught up with a college friend. They're like, well, what are you doing here? You shopping for some fish or some food? Or no, I'm just here on a synchronicity walk here. What are you talking about? Maybe show them this video, show them your dice, and they go, crazy, I didn't realize it was your birthday today. It's like, well, we haven't talked for years. Why would you remember that? And they go, yeah, well, what are you doing right now aside from this? You're like, I'm just doing the synchronicity thing. I'm like, well, you know what? Let's catch up. Let's do this thing together. That's right. And you know what's great about this? Well, hey, you know what? The more people that get involved and are focused on the same thing is set to bring about greater results, right? So yeah, get out there, see, taste, touch, smell a little bit of the magic, line up some coincidences, stack up some synchronicity, and you're gonna understand why I brought it up in the first place. Yeah, because I argue everybody should be seeing a little bit of the magic out there, or what we would define as magic. And who knows, maybe you guys get out on your little trip here, and I don't know, you just realize, why do we ever lose contact with each other? All right. And then boom, maybe you run into a flagpole. I don't know. Right. So in any event, think you get the idea. So let's get on with the read. All right. Your month is January. Your day is the 30th. Your sign is 9 to 11 degrees Aquarius, of the Aquarius I period specifically. And your quality and element is fixed air. All right. January 30th, the day of take charge. Those commanding personalities born on January 30 are born to lead. They have a great talent for guiding, entertaining, teaching, explaining, and in general making their ideas clear to others. It is most often these communication skills that lend them the power to head families, businesses, or civic organizations, and indeed their inspirational quotient is very high. Rarely dictatorial in their outlook, those born on this day are happiest when they are building something from scratch, getting in there on the ground floor, and directing the project from first go. When required by life or to administer or to existing structures, their impulse is often to scrap them and start all over again, thereby giving their undeniably personal stamp to the newer version. And January 30 people pride themselves on having very good judgment. Consequently, when crises arise, they are in their element. Much of their life may be seen by them as a necessary preparation for decisive acts to come, roles they will one day assume. And consequently, they do not recognize failure as anything more than a temporary setback, and ultimately as an important lesson to be learned. And somewhat ruthless, these individuals will let very few things stand in their way. So convinced are they of their moral correctness. And unfortunately, some of their behavior can be quite questionable, particularly when viewed from the tail end of hindsight. Not uncommonly, January 30 people are very much concerned with their image, and will sometimes sacrifice their ethical principles to come out smelling like a rose rather than a fish, it says in parentheticals. Highly persuasive individuals, January 30 people are not above bending the truth a bit to accomplish their purposes. And this they do in a very easy fashion, which does not invite undue suspicion. However, behind the scenes, they may be engaged in some very fancy footwork in order to keep their social balance. And most often, the justification for their actions is that they are acting for the good of the individual, the family, or the social group that is concerned. And this may be generally true, but a bit dishonest when in some cases it is their very own personal ambitions that are their true motivations. And January 30 people are most often very practical and astute financially. But they do not suffer from a mercenary image. In fact, they may be seen as idealists. This image aids them in money matters, for they arouse less antagonism and jealousy. Thus, in these as well as other important areas of life, they play their cards close to the chest. Trust is vital to January 30 people as they cannot operate without it. They should try to justify that trust as much as possible. Others often come to believe in them so deeply that great damage can be done if those born on this day do not come through. All right, hey, very interesting breakdown to be sure. It actually pulled the rug out on me as I was composing the notes here that I'm going to provide for you here in a moment. That having been said, ever since the Capricorn period kind of touched off, the breakdowns have been very laser focused and really drilling down on the theme of the day and kind of expanding out from there to see how that kind of influences their lives and such. When before, the days were usually very well rounded, and they would speak to like what you were maybe like as parents or friends, what your career is like, etc. And here they didn't do that too terribly much. We're still kind of in this I don't know, focus on being very laser there. But again, I think they provided a lot of value in what they had to say. I might not have said that, but I think they provided a lot of value here. So like I said, I got some notes here. Let's dive into a little bit of a commentary that I like to provide. Maybe make some connections with days previous or the period in general and just things I found notable. So let's dive in, shall we? January 30, the day of a take charge. I do like this title for to be sure, because it's so grammatically different than the other days. But in any event, you're commanding personalities who were born to lead, all right, and with a great talent for guiding, entertaining, and teaching and making your ideas clear for others. You're a stark juxtaposition against yesterday's otherwise passive tendency, which can lead to indecision. For an ironic proximal dichotomy. It's interesting how much the days can be different. It's just they're so close to each other. You think there'd be some bleed through sometimes. And sometimes there is, but your day just falls on one that's just starkly different. That being said, the shift, it's just interesting to see what kind of a shift can happen from day to day. But you're also said to rarely be dictatorial in your approach and more of an inspiration in your leadership style. Arguably the more difficult of the two to utilize, I would argue, but ultimately it's the stronger and the more valuable of the two, I would say, versus the dictatorial. The reading claims you're also happy with building things from scratch so that you can essentially put your own stamp into the project's DNA. And to this end, you're also known to have good judgment, so you're well within your element, I would say, if issues present and decisive action is required. As you're said to view life as preparation for moments when action must be taken. So you're very proactive in your approach to life, it would seem, especially if you take failure as opportunities to learn and improve, which is a very hard perspective for a lot of people to take, I would argue. Conversely, the reading claims that your behavior does have its setbacks, apparently, which I didn't anticipate, but I appreciate being pointed out. And this is where they kind of pulled the rug out from underneath me. I didn't expect it at all. To say that you possess a self-assuredness in your actions, which sometimes only aligns with your moral compass, and by extension a concern for your image, that you may do unethical things to uphold, all right? To which the reading also says that you may utilize your abilities to persuade for your own specific purposes and to justify your associated actions. As not necessarily so much for the good of the things you say it's for. And I land about where the book does in regard to this, since there is a case to be made that most people's actions are self serving to some form or fashion. Not everything is altruistic, right? But I think it comes down to how much you may be benefiting that said cause, if you like, and how honest and transparent you're being about it. So trust, I would also agree, is paramount here. You break that, and your ability to inspire is going to fall apart immediately. It's such a fickle leadership style or thing, because if you tarnish it in any way, it's gone. Whereas if you're being dictatorial, it's more fear based, I would argue, and so people are always just kind of on eggshells. But I would say that's the weaker of the two, because those people aren't necessarily going to die for you because they die for you, but they're not going to go to bat for you or follow you in the battle based upon the fact that they're scared of you. But if you inspire something in them to bring out the best, they're going to follow you to the ends of the earth because they want to, not necessarily because they think they have to, or else something bad will happen. I think you get the point. But it's also understandable why image may be so important to that end, either of negative or positive regards. That said, the more open and honest and transparent you are, the less work you have to do to maintain that trust, I would say. Lies, even small ones, aren't going to be helpful to the greater ends, even if they're altruistic and they're done to serve the greater purpose. Because if somebody sees as much, it's gonna throw that trust into question, and also maybe into question who you are and what your aims are, even if they are altruistic and not self-serving. Um, but if you're the one that stands seen to stand to benefit in the long run because of as much, hey, you know what? Again, things are just going to fall right through your hands, I would say. But in any event, that's basically what I came to see from the breakdown. Found it very interesting in no small part. So, having said that, let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, yeah. Those born on the 30th of the month are ruled by the number 3 and by the planet Jupiter. And those ruled by the number 3 generally seek to rise to the highest positions within their sphere. And as already mentioned, January 30 people are often driven toward high levels of achievement in their search for success. And as Uranus rules Aquarius, a Jupiter-Uranus combination results for January 30 people, indicating that they tend to do things in a grand and sometimes idealistic manner. And because those ruled by the number 3 are characterized by a love of independence, January 30 people generally do best working on their own, without too many external rules and limits placed on them. All right, very highly personalized numbers and planets here for you today. Might have something to do with the co-rulership, maybe not one that's popped up before, Jupiter, Uranus there, but even if it has, they drilled down and made it very personalized. So, might be getting ahead of myself. Let's dive back into the notes here. The number 3 in the expansive planet Jupiter for a desire to rise to the highest positions in your sphere, and with an influence of the explosive and erratic planet Uranus for a penchant to do things in a grand and sometimes idealistic fashion. Uranus is said to shake up and electrify the dynamics of the planetary energies it's associated with, and here I'd say it seems to do so in a rather positive way, all things being considered, which isn't always the case. A lot of times Uranus comes in and it shakes it up kind of negatively, I would say, sometimes anyhow, or in ways that aren't really necessarily anticipated for the typical energies that are said to be possessed by or influenced by the planet rulership for the day. Jupiter is said to be a jovial planet that also imparts a expansive philosophical outlook and also material luck in some circumstances. And I don't know if we saw any of that in the breakdown specifically, but this love of independence, even if said to be imparted by the number 3, for a rare inclusion of numerology there, is also a quality of Uranus there. And in addition to idiosyncratic natures and a penchant to change the rules, such qualities may not be directly mentioned, but one doesn't have to read too hard between the lines to see why it may apply. Sounded a lot like Uranus here for you today, I would argue. So that's your numbers and planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right, the tarot card. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but we don't have to take it home with us. Start dealing out the cards to, predict our future or however they're used. So it's our birthday, though. Let's see what kind of connections we can make or what other kind of information we might derive from as much. So let's get into it here. The third card of the major arcana is the Empress, symbolizing creative intelligence. She is the perfect woman, the ultra-feminine Mother Earth nurturer who embodies our dreams, hopes, and our aspirations. The card represents positive traits of charm, grace, and unconditional love, but also negative traits of vanity and affectation, as well as an intolerance for imperfection. All right. This one was a total copy-paste job and a stark juxtaposition to your numbers and planets entry there. But that's pretty typical of the tarot entry. Sometimes I'll personalize it, but just a little bit. So in any event, I'll pick up the slack here if there was any. Hopefully I can provide a little more context or value for you. The Empress for creative intelligence, the perfect ultra-feminine nurturer who embodies her dreams, hopes, and aspirations for traits of charm, grace, and unconditional love, but negatives of vanity behavior designed to impress, which would be affectation, and intolerance for imperfection, for a little bit of a rehash for you. A particularly apt card, I would argue. The traits of the charming individual who inspires and hence gives to and nurtures others, ostensibly from a place of love. One would hope, right? Who inspires and hence gives to, I already said that, but also garnering a following that comes with that, all right, from those particular gracious things that you've imparted. But with that also comes the temptation to take advantage of the benefits that dynamic gives to you, right? And ostensibly for your own benefit there. And maybe to a degree, the original intention there, it falls away. Maybe you just meant to inspire and give to people with unconditional love, but once you saw there's a little bit something extra in there, everything else starts to gradually fall away in spite of that, perhaps. Even if artifice of as much is maintained, so to continue benefiting. All right, so I think there was this slippery slope that kind of entered into the equation. Like you have to start maintaining your image and start have to tell little lies here and there just to maintain the facade. This is very interesting. So maybe a fatal flaw if you decide to go down that particular path, or if you have in the past, the pitfalls perhaps. So very interesting for your tarot. Hopefully we elaborated on something you found of interest. Before we move on into your health. That's right. Let's get into your health here. Those born on January 30 may experience difficulties with their circulatory system and with their lower limbs. Paying more mind to their health is important, since they tend to ignore what is wrong with them. And as January 30 people are highly active, they may find time for rest periods. Or they may have to find time, rather, for rest periods. Particularly, it says, with advancing age. Afternoon naps may be suitable for them. And as far as diet is concerned, consumption of meat and alcohol should be controlled particularly, so that aggressive impulses are not heightened or aggravated. Interesting, I didn't pick up on aggressive tendencies there. For physical exercise, moderate walking, jogging, or swimming is recommended. All right. Hey, I mentioned the aggressive tendencies thing because that's something I totally missed when I was putting the notes together. And I didn't pick up on that at all in the breakdown. And Jupiter is not said to be an aggressive planet, though maybe Uranus coming into it affects it a little differently. Who's to say? But maybe that's what you need to rise to the top, too, even though it said you don't have a penchant for a dictatorial outlook. Maybe that doesn't mean you don't use it sometimes. I don't know, but I'm getting ahead of myself, or no, I'm segueing is what I'm doing. So let's get into the health. You may experience circulatory system and lower limb issues, which is understandable considering those are the Aquarius body areas. The circulatory system specifically and the lower legs and ankles, they said, or elsewhere in the book. Anomalous insofar as they rarely come right out the gate with what is basically low-hanging fruit. And I say that because I'm usually the one who mentions this and brings it up in the breakdown here, because they typically don't. A lot of the times I feel like it's stuff that, like I said, is low-hanging. They'll save it if they don't have enough information to kind of fill the page. So I don't say this as a knock on the writers. It's just interesting that they brought that up so early, because it's anomalous, like I said. But the reading claims paying mind to your health is important, as you may have a penchant to ignore it. And this is something that came up a lot of times with the Capricorn folks. And I say that because, and I know this is Aquarius, but with Capricorn folks, they would always drive after their career or their particular cause, and their health always took a back seat. And so they're always saying, hey, you need to start focusing on this because it's important, especially if you want to maintain that commitment to cause. Because, essentially, if you're in arrears physically, you're not going to be able to dedicate yourself to the cause. So you got to find that balance. So that's why I bring that up. There's also an overwhelming amount of seeming bleed through with the Capricorn and Aquarius zodiac signs insofar as health is concerned. Well, also, I suppose, in personality types too. Not the same per se, but in different ways they're similar. And I think I had a couple examples here. Body areas, for example, are about the same. Circulatory system and lower limbs for you. For Capricorn, it was the veins specifically, and what was the other one? Oh, the bones. The bones there. So somewhat similar, I'd say, if your ankles are part of it. They also focus on careers, like I said, and desires, their careers and desires over their health. The list goes on to some extent. Interestingly. But that said, what's interesting here is they mentioned rest for you, and specifically naps might be of particular note or benefit. And that recommendation is usually reserved for the planet Neptune ruled days. So very interesting you got that. But again, that might be a little bit of Uranus's influence on you. Or maybe just the fact you're pressing so hard all the time, going after your particular aims. But again, anomalous, because there's other folks who press hard also, and they don't get that recommendation. So they also said moderate walking, jogging, swimming is recommended for exercise. And usually when that comes up, I would argue it's to try and bring you back down to earth a little bit, keep you grounded. I don't know that, and I guess I could see how you're not necessarily so much grounded. They said you're idealist sometimes, etc. Maybe focuses on the other things. So that might be why they mentioned as much for that. That having been said, did I say anything else for your health? Rare Jupiter day entry. Oh yeah, the Capricorns are warned to cut out the cholesterol with the animal fats and the dairy fats. Yours was kind of similar, I would say. The red meat, you got to be mindful of your heart, circulatory system wise. Yeah, that's about it though. So that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, your advice here. Be more transparent. All right, image is not everything. And let people know what you really think and want. And learn to share in a deep sense. Focus on your personal relationships. All right. Sounds a bit more like the Capricorn there with that latter part. All right, I might be getting ahead of myself. Let's dive in with the advice. Had to write it in a book, ran out of space on the page, so bear with me. My handwriting's tiny here to fit in there. Be more transparent. Image isn't everything, they said. 100%, I would say. Honesty is huge, but it's understandable you need to maintain your image depending upon how you're using it there, especially if you're being dishonest, right? So don't go down that slippery slope if you can help it, all right? The temptation is great, avoid it. Let people know what you want and what you really think. Don't know why they drill down on this, but maybe there's a case to be made for this if you're putting on some kind of facade or artifice, all right? Again, dives in with the more opportunistic, questionable aspects of it. And I'd say it's better to inspire others taking the questionable aspects out of it. It speaks to the questionable aspects of the breakdown, but from someone who inspires others and taking the questionable aspects out of it. I would say it's better to inspire from a who you are kind of place versus a what a person thinks you are false reality, if that makes sense. So Say who you are, what you want, so that they get a true and understanding of who you are, and not necessarily the one they have that they've built up in their minds based on who they want or see you to be, I think is what I was trying to say here. So they also said learn to share and focus on relationships, all right? Show your human vulnerability. It's hard if you are living the reality of the image that others have created for you, right? Or they build to fit you into. This was something that came up for January 24th individuals, the day of the aloof icon. They were kind of put up on a pedestal, and people would carve out the image that they wanted them to be, because they were very highly magnetic people. And in doing so, those people would start to fall in to the image that the people wanted them to fit into. A little different for you, but I would say there's some similarities there. And you also don't want to let your ego build up so much that you chance sacrificing the relationships that are important to you. If you start getting things, let things get to your head, you're going to start to abandon the things that are important to you on the back end there. And maybe you just get too consumed with that also, and then you're not paying enough attention to the family and the relationships, much the way the Capricorns would do, because that's something they always get recommended to do. Focus more on your personal life and not just your cause. Any event, a little disjointed now that I read it. Hopefully you took some value from it. It made sense while I was writing it. Maybe just me reading it, it made a lot of sense. So any event, hey, that's been your advice. So let's take the energy down just a hair and move on to your meditation. That's right, it's your birthday, you get a meditation. All right, here we go. Keeping one's eye on the goal does not preclude enjoying the surroundings. All right, once more. Keeping one's eye on the goal does not preclude enjoying the surroundings. All right, hey, I like this one for you. I really do. But I'm not going to tell you why, because it's your birthday, your meditation. If I was to tell you what I took from it, it wouldn't really help you there. It would defeat the purpose now, wouldn't it? So there's your meditation for your birthday. And with that having been said, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up the objective mirror and see where we got the girth, where we're strong, and where we're otherwise a little more atrophied, where we're weak. All right, your strengths. You're astute, you're organized, and you're socially conscious. Interesting. I don't know that I picked up on socially conscious. Not that it's not there. It just wasn't something I think that they drilled down on and made a case to be a strength necessarily. But maybe I'm just breezing over it. Who's to say? But your weaknesses there. Oh, the transition wasn't that good. Your weaknesses. That's better. Let's hold up the objective mirror, but flip it to the side that blows up your face and kind of shows up things you may be superficially insecure about there, if you like. As I often like to say. Your weaknesses. All right. You're calculating and you're hardened. Only two. And boy, there was some strong weaknesses there. Interesting. I pick up on calculating a little bit. Hardens, I think that has to lean into if you're somebody who's using these strengths of yours for ill-begotten ends there. Who's to say? Oftentimes I like to make a case that our weaknesses can be strengths just depending upon the situation. Because I remember some days back, weeks, months now at this point, I saw impulsive as a strength, and then the next day was a weakness. I'm going, well, that's interesting that it shifted like that, but it just depends on the individual. And so I like to make the case that sometimes our weaknesses can be strengths, so we shouldn't get rid of them altogether. But if you do want to improve upon your weaknesses, I also like to argue that our strengths are going to help us do that. You're astute, organized, socially conscious. Well, astute, you kind of have a great idea of what needs to be done to get things done. And they said as much when it comes to you taking over a business or a project. Organized, you're going to get things together you need to do to improve upon those things. Socially conscious, I'm not quite sure about that, but you might have an understanding of how those things fit into the grander scheme of things, whether social or not, because that's a huge understanding or component to understanding that. That having been said, your weakness is to be a strength. You know what? Calculating, hey, maybe over calculating with in a nefarious kind of way is what they're kind of trying to get at. But I would say sometimes maybe you got to do that to overcome an enemy, perchance. They didn't really bring that up, and that comes up sometimes in the birthday breakdowns. And hardens, sometimes we've got to be hardened to the otherwise hardships of life. We got to have a thick skin in a lot of cases. That could be a strength. So that having been said, take that with what you can there. Strengths and your weaknesses. I also say don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether if there's something you want to improve upon, because they do make us who we are. All right, just find the balance there, I think, is the key. But that's your strengths and weaknesses. And with that having been relayed, let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is not only see who shares your company, but examine it from the perspective of taking inspiration from these individuals to figure out or chase after our passions. Because too often in life I get out and meet individuals who don't necessarily have one. And they kind of seem like they're enjoying things, but I think they would just be enjoying life so much more if they were chasing after something that they were just jumping out of bed in the morning to get after. That's right. And sometimes people, you just tell on their face they're not happy with things. And again, I think that's because they don't have a purpose in life. They haven't found something that makes life fulfilling. And so I think this is the perfect opportunity to examine this particular aspect of the book in that perspective. So maybe we can take some inspiration and fuel our fires to carve out some time, to put in some work to figuring those things out. Because I think it does take time and work to figure out our passions in a lot of cases. And if you already know what they are, maybe it takes some kind of time and work to synthesize a means to make them financially viable if you want to make them the focus of your life and generate some material ends from it, or monetary ends there. But that having been said, if you got all that figured out, well then, hey, the hat I'm not wearing's off to you. We'll just get to see who shares your company. So let's dive into it, shall we? We start off with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the U.S. President, World War II leader, elected more times than any other president. 4, it says, and brought the U.S. out of the Depression with the New Deal and instituted Social Security. We also have James Watt, a Scottish steam engine designer and engineer in a unit of power namesake. We also have Barbara Tuchman, the Pulitzer Prize-winning historian of A Distant Mirror. We also have Harold Prince, a Broadway producer and a director. Vanessa Redgrave, stage film actress and political activist. We also have Gene Hackman, the stage and film actor. We also have Ernie Banks, a baseball shortstop, a first baseman, 2-time National League home run RBI champ. We also have also an MVP. I breezed over that. Roy Eldridge, a jazz trumpeter. We also have Sharon P. Kelly, Washington, D.C. mayor. Delbert Mann, 2 N's there, film and TV director of Marty. We also have Richard Baratagan, a writer of Trout Fishing in America. We also have Richard Cheney, the defense secretary and former vice president. Charles Lord Metcalfe, a British 19th century peer, it says, governor of India, Jamaica, and Canada. And we also have Boris Spassky, a Russian world chess player. We also have Curtis Strange, a golf 2-time U.S. Open winner. Francois Felix Faure, F-A-U-R-E, not quite sure how to say that one. French president. We also have Louis Ruckeiser probably, finance analyst of Wall Street Weekly. Also Dick Martin, a TV comedian of Laugh-In fame. We also have Olof Palme, a Swedish prime minister, and assassinated, it says. And we finally take us out with Dorothy Malone, the film actress. All right, hey, quite the smorgasbord of individuals there. Did they take charge? I don't know. A few of them did. The ones that I know seem to. That having been said, I know it's a big-ass hard sell to try and take inspiration from things other people accomplished with their lives. But like I said, maybe me just kind of helping you stir up the fires is going to help you chase after those things. Because I think if I can wish for you anything on your birthday, it's that you're finding a way to carve out some time to put into work, to find a passion. And maybe me putting the bug in your ear about as much is just what you need to hear to do that. So that having been said, I know I butchered a name or two, so let's make up for that on my end. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't work with me, or for me rather, especially with the French names. I know there's a French name I messed up. But that having been said, that has been those born on this day, and that essentially rounds out your birthday read. Except to say your season is winter. I was about to say your strengths again. Your season is winter. Your sign once again is Aquarius, of the Aquarius I period specifically, and your quality and element is fixed air. And what does that mean? Well, that's a different video altogether. I'll leave it at the end there for you if you're interested. But this has been January 30th, the day of Take Charge. Don't know that we found a meaning with the flag, the battle colors there, and the zigzag shadow for a Z shape. But here nor there, we don't often do. That having been said, this has been the Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Just Elfers. An affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy for yourself, diving in further. It'll save you the hassle of having to type it in a browser, and it supports the channel in the bargain, which I appreciate. But this thing makes an amazing coffee table book, especially if you need something to break out during parties and do some of the heavy lifting to get the ice broken. I know you inspire folks and such, but hey, maybe you can take some of the burden off your shoulders there by throwing this book out, getting the conversation started, for better or for worse. Now, but that having been said, the book being relayed, not altogether all too important in the scheme of things, because what's important around here, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. So happy birthday once again. If you take away anything here today, whether the breakdown applied or not, you know what? I just want to wish you a happy birthday. But for everybody else who joined us just to get the numbers or to, just see what the January 30th birthday was about, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. But more importantly, you join us for your birthday. That's right. But lest I forget, that's right, your daily numbers, all right? Get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path, and you understand why I brought it up, all right? Stack up some coincidences, drum up some synchronicities, see, taste, touch, feel, smell, intuit a little magic. You'll completely understand why, all right? And get you some steps in at the very least, right? But all of that being conveyed, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time and the privilege of being able to share your birthday with you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And once again, happy birthday. Take care of yourselves. And take charge there. You got this. All right. Be well.